All right, the last thing I want to talk about rather quickly, because we're sort of running out of time, is the issue. Actually, we had Tom Mesereau on the show while Jim was off filming episodes of Criminal Minds. And Tom Mesereau was talking about Mr. Sandusky and raising some issues about that case. And I was kind of sorry that Jim wasn't here to chat with him. But basically, the issue was that that there were some problems in the prosecution of Mr. Sandusky because the one eyewitness to this sexual abuse, McCreary, the assistant coach, was found not to be credible by even the jury and had changed the story a multitude of times. And my question to Mr. Mesereau was, is it necessary to have an independent witness if there are people claiming that they were sexually abused? I mean, I know it's not as easy to prosecute when there is one person saying I didn't do it and somebody else saying that you did. But what has been your experience in that case? Do you think that there were some issues that with the prosecution that make you less convinced of Sandusky's guilt?
Absolutely not. Mr. Mesereau, well, Mr. Mesereau is wrong when he says that McCreary was not believed by the jury. They only didn't convict of the anal rape of that child. They did convict based solely on McCreary's testimony for sexual molestation of the child and corruption of a minor. So there were two charges that were based solely on McCreary's testimony. They did find him credible. So sorry, Tom, that's not accurate. But the fact is,
he did change his story a number of times.
He did, yeah. There's no question. And the way he changed his story, there are issues with McCreary, and we can talk about them another time if you want. But the fact is that he was one eyewitness. Actually, there were two other eyewitnesses. One was a janitor who passed away, but he had told the story to a second janitor, and that person testified. And then there was the coach at the grade school, where one of the victims was laying on the floor with Sandusky late at night in a back room of the gym, and the coach saw him, and Sandusky got up on one elbow and said, "Oh, we're just working on some wrestling moves," and the coach thought, "Well, I'm the wrestling coach, and I don't know any wrestling moves like that," but he said, "What am I talking about? This is Jerry Sandusky, he's a saint." That child later came forward, and that eyewitness testimony corroborated what that child said. So that he was then molested later that evening. So there are more than one eyewitness, and the jury did find that witness credible. So that's not really safe to say. So I don't, for those reasons.
And he was raising issues and questions.
I get it.
About it. And he was not saying that he thought, just to be clear with you guys, he wasn't saying that he thought he was innocent. He said there were some problems for him.
And I get it. And actually, I watched the show, and it was very good, and he was actually balanced, and he did say that he hasn't analyzed this particular case, he's not an expert on it, and so forth. But I will say that, that there are.
But you are. That's why I wanted.
I did analyze the case, and I would love to talk to Tom about it and explain.
He will be back.
I bet, and so will I. So I would love to explain the details of it and debate with him or whatever. But he also said this. He said, the Michael Jackson trial was littered with testimony of people who had financial incentive to exaggerate, embellish, or worse. It was an embarrassment. Well, I agree with Tom Mesereau on one point, that Michael Jackson and Jerry Sandusky are very much the same kind of person. I believe that they are both nice guy, pillar of the community, acquaintance offenders, who everybody who knew them loved them. That's what they were. And they used that position to do things. I believe Mr. Sandusky was actually much more of an offender than Michael Jackson was. I think the fact that Michael Jackson, what Sandusky is accused of doing and convicted of doing was much more heinous than what Michael Jackson was accused of doing, but not convicted of doing. But I think that when you look at, he's denigrating the witnesses or the victims that then sued civilly when Michael Jackson's family sued AEG for billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars because of what happened to Michael. It is a legitimate process. And it is not something that
Yeah, but wait
undermines
a
the
second.
credibility of the people.
Well, I don't know. I do think that most prosecutors would probably argue that you don't want your witnesses who are going to be in a criminal prosecution to be engaging in civil lawsuits because it looks as if they have
But it
another.
happened the same thing.
It looks as if they might
couldn't
have
look.
another. What? But people are concerned about it. It's the same thing as taking money to appear on some television show to talk about what happened. They want it to be a pure process where they go after them. Because
But
otherwise,
it is, and it was an absolutely separate process. They weren't they didn't sue till after
but
the
there
criminal
was
process
in both of those
over.
cases a deep pocket, and it does make people wonder when somebody is trying to, is going
I
after
get
someone
it.
civilly.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't make people wonder, but it does not undermine the credibility of it. It does not make it. I mean, was the Jackson family exaggerating, embellishing, and embarrassing because they went and sued AEG, or did they want to get retribution for the fact that this company pushed Michael to the point where he's dead now?
Well, furthermore, there was no criminal charges filed against AEG.
Well, no. The doctor, he was
Yes,
convicted.
I know,
and
but that was a
AEG
civil
hired them.
lawsuit.
Right.
Yes, I know, but
it was based on the criminal conviction of the doctor. So
Yes.
the doctor was convicted, then they filed a civil suit.